And we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for another episode with you on Divine Talks, Conversations with the Soul. I'm very excited about today's topic. As you guys can see in the caption, we're talking about trauma and the importance of healing. For those of you who are new to the channel, again, I appreciate your time. My name is Loretta Ita. I am a spiritual life coach with divination, spiritual and life coaching. And I have a platform or talk show called Divine Talks, Conversations with the Soul. The essence of Divine Talks is really a platform for us to talk about those sensitive conversations, right? Those heartfelt emotions, things that are happening in the world, inside and outside of our worlds, things that are conversations that are meaningful to our mental health, to our spiritual health, our transformations and our growth journey, and allow us the vulnerability to be ourselves and have these conversations with like-minded individuals. The essence of this is to help ourselves and help whoever is tuning in to grow in whatever areas that they need to based on the topic. So again, I thank you for being a part of this journey. Some of you that have been here from the first episode, and we're now on episode 8. So I thank you for rocking with us. Before I start rambling, because I can, I'm just going to introduce our co-host. I'm excited to have Miss Lynn Jasames with us. I see some people trickling in. Before I bring her on, I just want to say thank you for those who are joining. Oasis Inspirations, MP Papi Cleveland, Allegra G. Thank you guys for being a part of this. So this might be a bit of a sensitive topic today, maybe a little bit triggering, But again, the essence of Divine Talks is to have these type of conversations that are not so easy to have all the time. But I'm that passionate about myself and us growing as a people, as a community, in any way that we can. So that's why I'm excited about talking about trauma, because that's something that I feel has surfaced even more in the last few years, especially connected to the pandemic. I think that the pandemic gave a lot of us time to sit with ourselves, to spend time in the house. Everything was shut down. And a lot of those things that we suppress had no choice but to come up, for us to address. So this topic is very much needed, I think, in my life, in the people that I'm connecting to in their lives as well. And I hope that all of you that are joining today in your lives as well. So I will go ahead and bring our guest. I will allow her to introduce herself, and I will give you guys the outline of the conversation, and we'll dive into it. Again, this is a conversation about all of us. It's not just about me or Sister Lynn. It's about you. It's about all of us. It's a collective space that we can all voice our own opinions and questions. So please feel free to interact with us in the chat, ask questions, leave comments, be a part of this. So thank you guys. Give me just 1 second. Okay. So Miss Lynn, I have sent you an invite. We're just waiting on you. I think something is going on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Not sure why. It shows that it's on.
Do you see your video, the icon for the video to the right-hand side?
Yeah, I see it. It shows like I
there...
can see me. It shows that the video is on.
Okay, it doesn't have a cross. Okay, can you see me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's interesting. Hold on. Oh, wow. Okay. Can somebody else in the chat Okay, so it must be me because they can see both of us. Okay.
Okay.
That sounds I can't see you. Oh, that sucks. I want to see you as I'm talking to you. This is weird.
That's very different
Uh,
too.
I know,
Absolutely.
but I think it's me because the last live that I went, I can see the person there, but I couldn't see her face. It was just a blank. Yeah, so it might be me. I need to
Okay.
check that. But I'm glad that everyone can see both of us. So that is
Well,
it's
somebody
okay.
else said they can't. Oh, that you can't
You
see her,
can't
but they
see.
see us.
Yeah,
Okay,
you can.
cool.
Yeah, they can. Okay. So we'll just go. We'll just flow right into it. I'm
Make
glad that
it
they
work.
can see us. Yeah, we'll just flow with it. Hopefully a miracle happens. All right, so without further ado, I am excited to have you. If you can please introduce yourself to the
Oh,
people.
well, hi, I am Leandra James. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everybody that's joining us today. I do like to say I do have a master's degree and a bachelor's degree. My history really is in trauma, more so in abuse or neglect, personally and for work experience and education wise. It's in trauma. I train on trauma. I've authored 3 books. I'm a life coach on trauma, and I train and I do speaking engagements as well. So I've worked with the likes of Les Brown. So did some platinum speaking with him for 2 years, and so my
That's
personal
amazing.
experiences really is surrounding a lot of child abuse or neglect, sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, being a victim of drug and alcohol abuse, being a child and growing up in those type of environments. Understand what sexual abuse is. That's my experience being raised in the projects. So yeah, a lot of things I do talk about, I definitely can relate to from personal experience.
Definitely. And thank you
Yeah.
for just diving right into it and just letting us know who you are and your experiences and the vulnerability. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been doing what you've been doing? The
Oh,
trauma coaching.
I've been doing Trump for like the last 7 years. It's only
Okay.
been 7 years, but I've been doing abuse, neglect, child welfare for probably for over 25 years. I've been with the
Okay.
Department of Family Services since 1996, so
That's
it's been a long time.
amazing. That's amazing. And I'm at the end. Please share more of your information as far as the different things that you do, especially those services for people in the audience who may need things like that. So
Okay.
I thank you for choosing to be a part of this conversation with me today. We don't even know each other that
I
well, but
know, right?
we're
But we
here.
have
And
the
yes,
commonality between us
similar
is the
interests.
desire to
Yes,
help people.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I'll go into the outline. We're going to talk about what trauma is,
Okay.
where it began,
Mm-hmm.
the types of trauma, the
Mm-hmm.
importance of healing trauma, and we're going to close out with healing tips.
Okay.
So, yes, again, feel free, guys, ask questions, leave comments,
Definitely ask
guys, engage
questions.
with it.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
definitely ask questions though. That's going to be important for
yes,
them to
ma'am.
ask. So.
So, give us your, and it's so weird because I'm doing all this without seeing you. I'm like, "Ugh, this is so, I wanted to see you. This is so, I'm still trying to see. I'm like, I'm literally looking at myself talking.
Oh,
This is
yeah,
crazy.
I'm there. I see you though. I definitely see you.
But I'm gonna try my best. So tell us what your definition of trauma is. What is trauma in your own words?
So in my own words, and it is connected to the actual definition, but trauma feels like a threat to your survival.
Mm,
Trauma feels like something you're being robbed of something was taken to you, whether taken from you, whether it's something physical, whether it's something personal tied to your identity, tied to who you feel you are, and it changes your trajectory on life. Sometimes it changes people's behavior. So trauma is rooted in a lot of different things, but it feels like a threat, right? You know
mm.
something has happened, usually it's something out of your control, and then it triggers a lot of internal stuff as a result of that trauma. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was beautifully said, and
Thank
it's
you.
definitely that's the way I see it, to a threat to your vessel. It's like
Yes,
an
your
alien came
livelihood.
in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an
Yeah,
alien came in, and you're like, yeah, this don't go here.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm. Yes, yes, I love that.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what are the different types of traumas that you have dealt with in your experience?
So I can give you like, so people don't know that there is categories for trauma. And I'm gonna give you an example. So
Hmm.
there's it's called acute trauma. Acute trauma is like a single one-time incident, right? And people typically associate acute trauma with something that we're supposed to get over. A good example would be a car accident. You got into a car accident 15 years ago, and in that moment, it was traumatizing. And then people expect you to just be okay 10 years later. But trauma impacts people different, and it has long-term effects that still be traumatic, could be traumatic. An example, one of my clients shared that they got into a car accident when they were 7 years old, a head-on collision at night at 7. In his 30s, he still could not drive at night. He's undergone hypnosis. He's got a lot of therapy. He even tried to go drive drunk, thinking it would give him the courage. He cannot drive at night, as it's something that happened to him when he was 7 years old. Now, he's lived with it, and he's managed it and developed some coping skills from it, but still at the same time, it's something he's still trying to manage and navigate through 30 years later. So even though it's an acute incident and a one-time incident, we cannot negate the fact that it can still affect us years and years later. And then
that's a
I'll give you one more
great point. Yes, please. I want to say it's a very great point you're making for us. The topic is the importance of healing. What you've just said is something happened to this child at 3. And at this age, this thing is precedent, or is still existing in this person's life. This is the importance of healing. But go ahead. I just wanted to make that point because that's exactly why we're here.
So another category would be complex. And complex trauma is when we suffer trauma at the hands of people who's supposed to love and protect us. So like a lot of children have a lot of complex trauma because it's their parents who's abused or neglected them, or physically abused them, or sexually assaulted them. So it's complex because you're the person causing me the trauma, but yet you're supposed to be the person that's supposed to be protecting me. So a lot of times, like we ask why children can't relate, like why they can't, why they never stop blaming their parents, right? If I'm a child and I know my parents have done something, but yet and still I want to blame somebody else, it's because as children, we're taught that our parents do love and protect us. So when we're in a situation when they're not loving and protect us, it's confusing, and we never can fully conceptualize what they've actually done to us. So then we carry guilt. We blame ourselves. We internalize it. So I must have did something wrong. It got to be because of me, because it's so complex that my parent, it doesn't even make sense that my parent would cause me to abuse or neglect. So we carry a lot of guilt as a child.
That's very, very prevalent. That's very prevalent. Someone said in the chat, could the effect of the trauma be harder to get over due? Could the effect of the trauma be harder to get over due to the age he got into the car accident at 7 years old? So she's saying, could it be due to the age? So maybe for instance, if he got into the accident at 12 as opposed to 3, would that be different? I think that's what you're asking. Black Hair Shop is asking that question.
Okay, so how I would answer that, because the other part to trauma that we kind of tend to not hone on is the psychological damage that trauma causes. It impacts our brain and growth and development and our cognition as well. So if we suffer so much trauma, our brain cannot fully develop. Our brain goes into compartmentalizes what has happened. So I can't really say it's because of the age, because he was 7 at the time that it happened. But I will say that because of the psychological damage it did, and sometimes we create barriers of defense. Whatever barrier of defense, he hasn't found the way to release it yet. What he did do through the coaching with me is he learned how to cope better, and wasn't so like at nighttime, the fear of driving had decreased a little, but he wasn't willing to try to make another attempt yet. But he was like, I gave him some good coping skills, and
That's
at
great.
night he had less anxiety. But I can't really say if I don't know if he ever started actually driving. And after so long of psychologically believing you can't do something, it's going to take a lot of internal work. But tapping into
I was just gonna say,
of it.
yeah,
That's
gonna
a great
take him
question.
some time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and even piggybacking off that question, or that what you said, the age might not play so much of an impact, only because of with the trauma happens, it goes into the subconscious. So either way, it's still going to affect that person as growing up because it's still there. It's
Yes.
even though the conscious mind, maybe at 12 you're more cognizant and more conscious at 12 than 3,
Yeah.
but it's still imprinted in your subconscious. So it still will affect you. Now at 3, like what you were saying, Miss Lynn, at 3 you don't have all the answers. So your subconscious mind is trying to make it make sense.
And
So
it's
it's gonna pull from
creating. It's
anything.
creating.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's gonna pull from anything just so we can make sense
Yeah.
to its 3-year-old brain, or
Yes.
but yeah,
Or
that's a great
7-year-old
question.
brain. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, 7-year-old brain. Okay, yeah. I mean, I love the way we just went right into this, and that's I'm glad you brought up the physical stuff because in my notes that's what I had. We always when we hear trauma, we always think it's spiritual, emotional, mental, but there's also physical
A
trauma that can
lot of
affect
things.
it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also mental, spiritual trauma, emotional trauma that can manifest as physical as well, so it's
Yeah.
interchangeable in a way. So in your case, the physical manifested
Yeah.
into mental with your patient, with your client, it manifested into the spiritual, into the mental from him having a physical experience. And people who deal with trauma for a long time and don't deal with that, it can manifest in the physical. So that's why I'm so a big advocate of mind, body, soul
Yeah.
healing, because it's all it's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing. Thanks for making that point. Okay, so let's dive right into it. What is the importance? Let's answer the question, the topic. What is the importance, in your words, of healing trauma?
Well, I think the key thing when we want to heal from trauma is understanding that if we're not a healed person, it's going to be hard for us to build solid, healthy relationships. Because of our own pain, we're going to carry it into other relationships. And that's whether it's a mother and child, male, female, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, mom, daughter, mom, son. If we don't heal, then we take that into other relationships. And if we're not a healed person, we can't fully develop a healed relationship because we're not healed ourselves. So even in our good functioning and even in our good moments, we spend a lot of time triggered because if we haven't addressed stuff, then that's what's at the root of why we're being triggered because it's still sitting there. It's still sitting there. My passion comes from people have it hard to heal because we got to accept what's happened. And if we're not accepting it, and then we keep creating scenarios in our head that we loop, that we loop, that we loop, it causes more damage because we're stuck in that space. So we're cycling through an incident, and then sometimes that incident trigger other incidents, right? So not only are we dealing with what just happened, now we're pulling in some other stuff that happened, and the triggering just becomes a fight, flight, or freeze response because we're
Yeah.
still in that constant state of panicked. And then when I say we're not accepting, it's because the scenarios that we're creating stops us from accepting what's happening. An example would be someone who's get diagnosed with cancer, but the scenario they keep playing in their head is how did I get cancer? And then they looking at other people's life, and then they're looking at, well, that don't make sense. And I don't come from, like, we make all these other external things more important than addressing, oh, I just been
That's a
diagnosed
good
with
point.
cancer. Oh, I just been diagnosed with cancer, and then sit in it and really own, and then don't create scenarios outside of, I just been diagnosed with cancer. And that's part of my story as well. So I know what it feels like because I kept saying, are you sure? And then I went and got another opinion. You see what I'm saying? Instead of, okay, I've been diagnosed with cancer, and instead of moving in that space, why me? And I don't want to die. I think I killed myself probably 5 times in my head. You see what I'm saying? Because of the scenarios that we cycle through, that we continue to create this narrative instead of sitting in it, accepting it, and then
Wow.
moving from that. It's
Yeah,
hard. People don't initially take that approach because we want
for
to be in
sure.
denial about it. And
Yes.
it's hard
Yeah.
sometimes to accept life changes.
Thank you for sharing your story. I mean, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, for sure. What is one thing, and we're gonna give tips at the end, but of course we'll be giving tips as we go. So being that I just learned that about you now, going through that life-changing experience, that that type of that a traumatic talk about trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
The traumatic experience or event, what would you say were some of the practical things? Acceptance is what you said. That's the root. That's the
Yeah,
first thing we must do, is accept that
it's
this is
hard
happening. Don't
sometimes.
run from it, right? What is other practical things that you did to help someone who's in that space, or people who are going through different types of trauma and are having that having a hard time accepting? What is something practical that you did to get over that transformation?
So for me, I do have a spiritual practice and I believe in God. And I do like to differentiate because people be like, well, what about people who don't believe in God? I believe in God, but you can still have a spiritual practice. You can still, because spirituality gives us a sense of hope, right? And when you have a sense of hope and you have that hope to pull from, you could pull yourself up out of situations and traumas faster and quicker. There's even studies that show people with spiritual practices recover a lot quicker than people without them. There's
That's
studies
an
that show that.
interesting survey.
So
Makes sense.
I leaned to my spiritual practice first, which led me right into the mode of taking care of myself. Because self-care, you have to go on to self-care, because if you don't, you're going to shut down. And then you're not going to even be
Mm-hmm.
showing up for yourself, which means you can't show up for other people. You want to be able to show up for other
Amazing.
people. So I would say I turned to my spiritual practice first, which allowed me to
Mm.
go right into getting the medical help I need and not delaying it. Setting up the appointments. It took me into action mode instead of self-pity mode a lot quicker than if I would have not had the spiritual practice. Because once I prayed about it and really truly believed within my heart that I was going to be okay, it automatically takes you into action. Without a spiritual practice, then if you're stuck in a space with no hope and no reason to believe that it could get better, then you stay stuck longer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it even ties back to what you're saying, the answer you gave earlier about the importance of healing. To me, it affects relationship for sure,
Mm-hmm.
but even on the other aspect, it blocks a lot of who our real potential, on the thing, on who we really are.
That's good.
Trauma
Absolutely.
suppresses all of that.
Mm-hmm.
All the things you want to accomplish, or
Mm-hmm.
especially if we're in positions that we're not comfortable with, and we're wondering why, and not knowing that really the thing that you desire is really on the other side of your trauma, of that healing
Yeah.
work.
That
So I
that's
think it is a real
showing
good
up.
point.
That's showing up. And not about showing up for other people. A good example is people who post all the time and then trauma happens and they shut down and they stop. You really stop showing up for yourself. So then it started impacting other areas of your life. And then it turns into what you can't do and how, but you really stop showing up for yourself.
Mm,
So we got to continue to show up for ourselves, do the things that we were engaged in before the
yeah,
trauma happened. It's
yeah.
a myth that we gotta look broken and appear broken, right? Like one of the things I get people often say that, oh, you talk about trauma like it's no big deal, and how can you, like, why don't be running right here acting like you're supposed to be happy with trauma? And I have to say, look, if you read my story and understand what all I've been through, I'm grateful to be able to be who I am, but I'm really this person. I'm not waking up faking that I can own my trauma and walk in my trauma and hold my head high in my trauma and not be broken as a result of my trauma. And that's what we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to see,
Yeah.
broken people. And then to me, when I see people that's real spiritual, but then something happens and they present themselves as broken, then it's hard for me to see God in that, right?
Mm.
And not taking away from nobody who do, but for me, if I'm seeking, to me, God represents strength. So when I'm looking for strength, it's like the spiritual side kind of gets pushed to the side until we can pull it back up. And that's why when you have a spiritual practice, you can get back to it quicker. Without a practice, it kind of takes second place to everything else that's in front of you.
So my next question was going to be, why do you think it's so hard for people to get into the healing work based on the story you just told? Would you say it's because they don't have that spiritual practice? Why do you think it's so hard for people? Like you said, people are like, oh, you're always talking about trauma, trauma. Look, my mom told me the other day, you're always talking about emotions. Like, okay, mom, leave me alone. My life is much better now since I've been talking about
Mhm.
emotions. So like, what do you think is the hardest thing for people to get into healing work? all talk about trauma? Why is it so
Well, see,
sensitive?
a lot of people won't be honest or won't own it, but a lot of times people buy into the ideal of what they should look like or what they should be doing. An example, when
Mm,
someone dies, you're supposed to be crying. No, you're not. When we break
mm,
up with somebody, we're supposed to be sad and depressed. No, we're not. So that's the
mm,
first thing I see people do is they buy into a narrative of how we're supposed to act when certain type of situations happen, as opposed to stepping into the when we're whole and we healed. It's kind of hard to have a pity party. It's kind of hard to self-loathe. It's kind of hard to be like poor me or why me when you healed and when you hold and when you can feel good about yourself no matter what happens. But if I'm focused on people expect me to do this, expect me to act like this, and sometimes those things that people they put that own expectation on themselves.
mm,
You understand what I'm saying? Like they
mm-hmm,
put those expectations. Oh, I gotta cry. Oh, I gotta be sad. Oh, I should be mad. You know, like for me,
mm,
I practice the very thing that triggered me or made me feel bad. I would like, let's just say a person do me wrong. I'm gonna reach out to that person and see how I respond to them for my own healing. Because if I can
mm-hmm,
face them, then I can do some inner work if I face them. If I avoid them, if I cut them off, I tend to struggle more because I'm not a cut off person. I'm not a negative person. And I can't still be an asset to you where I can help you because if you've done something to me, you're probably dealing with something yourself, right? So I find
mm.
that if you ghost me, well, no, I won't say everybody who ghosts me. I got ghosts once, and I won't say that I kind of rekindled that. I will be honest about that. But they was warned if they did something, this would be the result. But just in relationship and when things happen, we are in better spaces and in better mindsets. So we practice. I want to be a happy person. I want to know that if something happens in my life, that it's going to serve my greater good, even if I don't see it today. Do that make sense? Like
Mm,
in the middle of the storm, we don't see sunshine. You know, we don't see green when, you know, during those times. But if I can sit back and say, this is going on and this is what's happening to me right now, but my mind is going to say, I know it's going to be better. I know it's going to get better. Things are going to be greater. I know I'm going to be okay. That's typically not how people react.
mm,
They're not telling themselves that I'm going to be okay. The narrative is what happened? What did I do wrong? What did I say? What I could have did different? Well, the narrative could be, you know what, Lord, I'm going to find a blessing in this. You know what, God, it got to be
mm-hmm.
something to my good that I don't see right now. You know, when you're in a good spiritual space, and that's just what I just went through something that I was kind of hard on me that initially I thought I would be okay with. And then if I find myself still 2 months later, like playing a scenario, the good is I know how to catch
Mm-hmm.
myself. But if I'm
Yeah.
2 months later playing a scenario, I still got some work to do from that
Yes, ma'am.
situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now I know how to
Mm-hmm.
counteract it. Like, oh, why am I thinking
Mm-hmm.
like that? I need to
Yeah.
change that mindset to thinking something different.
Yeah.
Thank you, Black Hair Shop, for
Alchemizing trauma.
participating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black Hair Shop says alchemizing trauma. That's exactly
Mhm.
what I was thinking. Yes,
Yes.
yes. You know, taking that darkness and transforming it into gold, into
Mhm.
light. Yeah.
Just like I don't mind when something first happened. I know people who got to get out, got to stay busy, and that was me. From all the trauma I've been through, and I can name a few: sexual abuse, foster care, being molested. There was sexual abuse, and molestation, the same, but rape. So rape is one thing. Growing up in a household with a parent who was on drugs, significant impact on my survival skills, right? Having an abortion is traumatizing. So just name some characteristics of things I've overcome and had to live
Yeah.
through. That's part of my story. So
Yeah.
back then, when I would initially get upset, play the scenarios, where I'm at now, because my spiritual practice is so strong, right? And where I'm at now, how I handle things then I've learned not to handle them. And I'm quick at reprojecting my brain. I'm quick at reassessing and telling myself a good narrative as opposed to the trauma and the bad narrative. And it's funny because we sometimes can't control the thoughts, but we can control where we take them. We can control where we take the thoughts, and that's going to be important.
Yes, ma'am. Wow. And I didn't even know that you would, because we talked on the phone a couple of times briefly, and you shared some things with me. I didn't even know you were going to go there. But again, this is even building up my respect more and more for you.
Oh, thank you.
And the reason I say that is because I think that people don't realize, and you spoke about this, that fear. People don't realize that first you have to be vulnerable for you to heal.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and it doesn't mean coming and telling the whole world all of your business. That
No,
doesn't
it's
mean
not
that,
what it
you
means.
know.
It's
That
not. And you know what?
exactly. That,
I wrote a book in 2005, and I learned the difference in writing my story and talking about my story, because it also is different. It's
mm,
two different things, but you think they're the same when they're not. Mhm.
interesting. Tell us how. I want to know more.
So when I wrote my book in 2005, I wrote it like, one, proving I could write a book. Two, I didn't know nobody who wrote a book. So I had all these reasons for writing it as well, but also wanting to be able to share, like, I know I'm not the only one. And at the time, the stuff that I put in my book, if you go back then, they wasn't talking about abortion like that. They weren't talking about sexual abuse like that, because I felt like God told me, you told it before they start telling it. I talked
Mm,
about my foster care experience, my sexual abuse. Like, I talked about a lot of significant things that they wasn't really talking about back then when I first wrote my book. So I felt like God
mm-hmm,
put it on my heart and said, you just was willing to tell it early. But what happened was I
mm,
wrote it in the book. But if I wasn't doing one-on-ones, I wasn't just out, and the platforms was different, don't get me wrong. But I still just wasn't, I was doing like events, but they were still more intimate events. It wasn't nothing on a grand scale. Like, I couldn't get out and just talk about what happened to me, what
mm,
happened. Mm-mm.
mm.
But it was in the
Yeah,
book though. And if you brought
yeah,
it up, I
and
could engage with you, but I wasn't
definitely,
just out with it.
and that's exactly what I mean. It doesn't even have to be to the like you just did now. It could be
Mm-hmm.
to a it can be to a trusted friend. It
Mm-hmm.
could be that basic,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of us don't even open up to our trusted
But
friends,
see,
you
what
know. So it
happened
could be that basic.
is,
Just
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, and what's important is, a lot of times when we experience something traumatic, we have to engage, because when we don't engage, we isolate. And when we isolate, we roll and play the scenarios even more.
Mm-hmm.
Talk. That's why therapy is important, because
Yes.
it gives us an opportunity to walk through and talk it out,
Mm-hmm.
what we've experienced. Because up here, a traumatized brain is not functioning as opposed to one that's not been traumatized. So even when
Exactly.
we want to process and be happy and feel good, our brain sometimes is not even capable as a result of what happened to us. And
Mm-hmm.
people don't know that.
That is that is so
They
important.
don't know
And
that.
that is down to the science on a biological level.
Yeah.
It's even research has shown that trauma does affect the biology
Oh,
of your brain, like physically.
absolutely.
So imagine
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And
And
before
see,
I forget, you did talk.
you know how you see
Uh-huh.
somebody that's 16 or 12, and you
Mm-hmm.
be like, why is they acting like that? They too old. They should know better. No, they don't. They really can't even
Yeah.
help it. They don't even realize that the behavior that they're engaged in is either inappropriate behavior or unacceptable behavior,
Mm-hmm.
or behavior that they shouldn't engage in. And a lot of times, a lot of people are in environments where the things that's still inappropriate is being normalized. So how would I know
Mm. Oh
that it's not
goodness.
inappropriate or unacceptable if
Mhm.
the environment I'm in is normalized? Then how would I
Yeah.
know? Hmm.
Yeah. That's a great point. Before I forget, I need you to tell the audience your book. There's two books. Can you give us the name and
Oh,
also how they can
so
purchase it if they're
I
interested?
don't
Yeah.
got the book sitting over here with me. Shame on me. Well, here go one of them. One of them is "It's Okay to Cry When the Odds Are Against You," and actually Les Brown wrote the foreword to this book. But
That is
this is
my
really
guy. That's
my
amazing.
story. And I really cycled through the importance of how I overcame a lot of that stuff that I endured. I talk about the sexual abuse. I talk about how I cycled through the abortion that I had to get to a place of peace, which I really just surface stuff. Forgiveness starts with you. God cannot forgive you if you cannot forgive yourself. And that's what I had to
Mm.
learn when I cycled through that abortion. So it's really my story, things that happened to me, how it affected me, but also I talk about how I overcame it. And a lot of
Overcame.
it, I think it's relatable. Most people, I have men calling me like, "Oh my God," and they thought
Mm.
it was a male bashing book, and it's nothing like that at all.
Mm.
And then the other
That's
one is
amazing.
How
What's
to
the
Beat the
second
Odds.
one? Yeah.
I can't
What is it?
believe I don't have that, but it's How to Beat the Odds from A to Z. I am too funny.
Okay.
So that one is tools and techniques and values and beliefs in one place. A good example, when I talk about how to beat the odds from A to Z, I talk about doing quality work. That's the cue, doing quality work. And I give you stories and scenarios so you can see them in real time and real practice. So I give you a scenario about someone who, based on what happened, you see how it played out that he wasn't doing quality work, but you also see the importance of why he should have did quality work. So it's just tools and techniques for me. I always wanted to do quality work was important because it propelled me to another level.
Yeah.
I talked about the importance of discipline, making efforts, having a spiritual practice. It's a lot of tools and techniques, but with stories in it that help you so you can see how it works in real time.
Good
And our
stuff.
behavior
That's
is
amazing.
important to us. We don't want to be judged, right? Our behaviors and the things we do and why we do them. We want people to more so understand us for them than judge us for them. So I add a balance to that when you read the book. And I give you a bonus chapter about coping skills and what they are and how
And
to
that's a
use them.
great attribute as a coach, having a non-judgmental approach when you're helping people. So that's and let's get right into this because in my experience, I've been in the life coaching industry. December will be 2 years. I mean, I've been a life coach all my life.
Yeah, I
I
get
talk
it.
about my story a little bit, but as a kid, it's just in you. If it's in you, it's in you, right?
Yeah.
But officially, as a tangible business, it's been 2 years, and me making the decision to follow through on this abilities that I have that I've always naturally had, like
Right.
with psychology. You know, um, what was I even saying? I think. I think in my experience, right, I'm like, wait, what was that? I think in my experience, in this last couple of years, there is a lot of fear around
Yeah.
people doing life coaching, seeing a therapist, seeing a counselor, seeing a spiritual guide, seeing a pastor, seeing a shaman, whatever you connect with, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is so important because what I'm hearing from people that I've dealt with, some of my past clients, is always a couple of the people that I've dealt with have told me there's something that I get from you is there's a non-judgmental presence or energy or the way that you go about your coaching. So in my mind, I'm like, what are people out here doing? Are people out here being mean to people? I'm confused.
Oh.
So that is a great point that you mentioned in your book as far as non-judgmental, because it seems to
Yeah.
be this thing about maybe you're going to someone for help, maybe a therapist, maybe a counselor, maybe a life coach, and they're projecting an energy of judgment, or whatever the case may be. And I think that is that's I think that links to the fear, especially, I mean, I'm a melanated woman, and so are you, especially in our community, that fear, that stigma around coaching, that stigma around therapy, So I think that's something we should talk about. What do you think about that? What is that deep-rooted fear?
Well, because we assume that it comes with a judgment, though, and if we're not ready to be transparent, and we forget that transparency is about us. When I'm willing to share and be honest and truthful about the things that happened to me, those things happen really for a reason. And when you learn how you free other people, like I know from experience that a lot of times, let's just say something happened to me. I don't care what else happened to nobody else. In my world, in my mind, this is huge for me. It's gonna cut my breath off. Like, but somebody else, them, it might bounce off them like a bug, like shoot, and they're over it, right? But for me, it had a tremendous impact on me. But the transparency part comes from when I release myself from that, because holding that stuff and carrying that stuff, I like to say, I think that's why I developed cancer. Because before I got to the point of, everybody will say, I've always been a positive person. I've always been a happy person. I've always been a helpful person. But by me not writing it, but not really talking about it and not really owning it back then, because guess what? Lynn was going to school. Lynn was working 2 or 3 jobs. Lynn was raising 4 young men. Did I have time to deal with Lynn? I really didn't. But on the outside, I did. And when I got diagnosed with cancer, it still was internally. See, it was the internal stuff that was getting me, because on the outside, everything looked so good and great and was,
Mm.
it was good. So when you're looking into a therapist, it's a couple of things to be mindful of, because one, when you're going to a therapist, it's not fair to a therapist to go to them and you have no clue. So you want them to figure out you, even though they can help you process you. You got to be clear on what are you looking for. Like, what do I need? Do I need to
What's
heal?
the goal?
Yes, because without a goal, you want them to get you somewhere where you don't even know where to go. Two,
Mm-hmm.
when you're working with someone, you gotta feel safe. You can't force it. If you identify that this may not be for you, you gotta be okay with saying, okay, I need to go find me somebody else. Because if you don't feel safe and you don't feel good about the energy, you can't heal in that space. You know, you're just building
Mm-hmm.
upon what's already there. And also seek a connection with your therapist, because that connection
Yeah.
helps you heal. And also make sure the person is a good listener, because we can hear
Yes.
somebody, but if we're not listening, and if you're
Mm-hmm.
with somebody who's not listening, they're not going to be able to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
That
They're
bond
not even going to
is
be able to have empathy.
important. That
And that
bond
authenticity,
is important.
I don't care how many
Yes. You
degrees
know,
you have, you need to be authentic.
that's the one. And I'm glad you brought that up. In my own personal experience and journey, and I'm learning and growing each day.
Yes.
That was something that I had to come to terms with. I transitioned from the fashion to life coaching, so that is such a contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I knew that it was easy with fashion because it's retail. It's like, that exchange. You're not
Mm-hmm.
really getting personal if you don't
Right.
want to, right?
Right.
I have something you like, you got some money, give it to me, I'll give you this. It's
Yeah.
pretty transactory on a very practical external level. As healing and coaching and dealing with the emotions and the mental plane and the subconscious, it's a whole different experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I struggle with that a little bit, because as much as I was in my fashion business, I have to be, especially I did a lot of vending events, and I had a shop that I was running and everything. So there's a sense of customer service that comes in there, where you have to
Yeah.
be, even when you don't feel so well all the time, you have to still in, that you have to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
So that in my own natural self, I'm an extrovert sometimes, but mostly I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
And the older I'm getting, the more mature I'm getting, that introverted side is coming up more and more.
Okay.
And I'm saying all that to say, like, I struggled a little bit when I started Divination Life Coaching, because I'm like, okay, this part of me that wants to be reserved, I want to just do my business in my privacy and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
that that kind of played on me a little
Just
bit. I noticed
learning
that,
to be
okay, for Loretta, for you
transparent.
to be
Learning
exactly, for
to
me
be
to be
transparent.
impactful to my clients, I must give them some of me. I must open up my heart,
Oh,
for them to be comfortable to do that. And that's a journey. That's a
it
journey
is.
that I do that naturally with my close circle of
Mm-hmm.
my loved ones. But with other people I there's a lot of people may know me, and they see me as this certain kind of, like, hey, pleasant person, which I am, of course. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not every time that you want to open up all of you to someone,
You're right.
especially people
Right.
that you don't really know so well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm learning, like, I'm mastering the art of just knowing that God put us all on this planet as all individual souls trying to figure it out, and we're all one. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're one entity.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for us to grow and heal as a collective, we have to know that we are one. So I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not afraid of myself anymore. I'm looking at it as I'm healing, helping you, I'm helping myself. As I'm helping myself, I'm helping you. It's like it's one now.
Mm-hmm.
So that separation is slowly closing. And this is just me being vulnerable right now.
Right.
That separation is slowly closing, as this is me and the next man is the next man. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
of course, we're all individuals, and I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very big advocate of having our individualistic side, because it's important. But at the end of the day, we're all in this game together.
Yeah.
And I care so much about my passion, and why I got into life coaching is really truly to help, to see people heal. Not even so much about me seeing them heal. I just feel good when somebody else feels good. That's it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
that simple. I hate to see somebody in turmoil.
Hmm.
We talked earlier today, and we were talking. I didn't even know what was going on, and I just said what I said because that's who I am naturally. I want to just pour into the situation because I
Yeah,
want you to feel better.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
no.
that's my
And it's
spirit
beautiful when it's
naturally,
natural. It's
for
beautiful when it
sure.
comes natural. You don't have to force it. You don't try. You don't have to, create a moment. It's the moment creates itself. And when you're an authentic
Exactly.
person, you
Exactly.
don't even have to work at that stuff because it
Mm-mm.
naturally comes out of you. It's
Yeah.
naturally a part of who you are and what you want to do, especially when it comes to helping people.
Yeah.
Helping people
Yeah.
understand that oneness is when you watching
Mm.
something on TV and you feel it, you understand the connection. It's not just in you and it's not just the people around you. A connection goes beyond. Energy goes far. If you ever do research on energy and the importance of energy, it's really, really, really symbolic in the sense of you can feel somebody pain far away. They don't have to be sitting in
Mm.
your living room.
Mm.
I want to welcome Twin
Mhm.
Pearls 42, Kink it the
Twin
Natural
pearls. Yes.
Way, and Nikki Real Estate Agent. I want to welcome them.
Okay, I'm not even seeing all these people. Okay.
Yeah, I
Welcome,
see them
welcome, welcome.
over
Oh,
here.
yeah, I do. I see it now. Okay,
Yeah,
welcome, welcome, guys. Thank you for joining Kinky
yeah,
Natural Way,
thank
Nikki. Okay,
you.
so we have a question actually.
Okay.
Black Hair Shop says, can trauma be a form of perspective? What could be traumatizing to one may not be traumatizing to another. Okay, and I think, okay, do you want to touch on that? I think you said something
Oh,
similar to that
absolutely.
earlier.
No, that's
Can
a
it be a
fact.
form of
That's a true
perspective?
thing. That's a real thing. Because what impacts me and my well-being and how something makes me feel, we see children and we see siblings and we see adults in same situations and they all respond different, which means it impacted them different because our growth and our development and our perspectives through our own lens definitely looks different. So it can be that way. Absolutely. Because I know people who they'll have their own trauma, then they'll hear my story and they'll be like, oh my God, ain't nothing wrong with me. Doesn't mean ain't nothing wrong with you. And please don't
That
minimize what
that's not
happened to
funny.
you.
That's not funny.
Because
Yeah, yeah.
what may
No,
not be
but
a big deal to me
for sure.
may be a huge thing for somebody else. Like when you understand suicide, when you understand how life experiences impact people, you would never minimize somebody else's story because
Yeah,
it does not look like yours or
yes.
somebody else's. Even not minimizing your own. If you
Mm-hmm.
devastated behind something and somebody don't think you should be devastated, then that person need to go. And I'm just gonna
Yes.
say it
It's,
because you
oh
got
my
to be
goodness.
honored. You have to be
Yes.
honored.
That is so good that you said that. It's something that I felt like I've always known for a long time, but I didn't know if I was right about that.
Oh no,
As far
absolutely.
as, yes, I used to always say something that may affect me more than it affects
Oh,
you, and it may be the same exact
absolutely.
thing. And I believe that, because we all have a different walk of life. My own
Hmm.
traumas came from my childhood.
Hmm.
I would say my biggest trauma is I guess I came out overly independent, and I was told because I was independent, that means I was I was good. So that connection to a caregiver was in a way severed, just a little bit. I'm not saying I didn't get the love and the truth. I did. It's not, it wasn't as traumatic. I did
Hmm.
have people around me that took care of me, but and this is something that I always talk about. I've done a few topics about trauma. I talk about my own personal story with my mother.
Hmm.
That was where when me and my mother talked about this, and we're in a much better place now. But that emotional disconnect, as you come into this world as you don't know anything. We're aliens when we come out,
Hmm.
from the womb. And if you don't have that connection to the person that you look at as your God,
Hmm.
that can have a very traumatic effect. And I don't even know what the word to call it, but that can have a
Hmm.
real effect on any man or woman.
Oh,
That is
absolutely.
that's in
Absolutely.
those ages is when you need that nourishment the most, from the ages of 1 to 7, or from newborn to 7. So that was a little bit, I don't even know what we're talking about, but that was a little bit of mine. And that emotional disconnect
Hmm.
is, what my own was. And it came out in different ways. And that's what we'll talk about next. I'll take one more. I said, please leave some questions, guys. What ways does trauma show up? in practical reality. We've talked about one, which is you can go through stress and it can manifest as a disease. But in
Absolutely.
other ways, how does, in our practical lives, in
Mhm.
real life,
So you mean
in
like
what different
unaddressed
ways,
trauma? Like when
yes,
it's not
how
addressed
do they
and it's
come
not.
out unconsciously? How do
Oh,
they
because
come
we
out
get we get
unconsciously?
triggered.
Just
We get triggered.
examples of how
We
they
get
come.
triggered. So the
Hmm.
good example is when you haven't dealt with rejection from your past and you haven't addressed it, you haven't owned it. Like I grew up, I was abandoned when I had my son at 14 years old. I was a teen mom. So I was abandoned because the day I had my son, the social worker came out, my mom never showed up, and I went into foster care. That's abandonment. As a
Yeah.
child, right? Everybody seemed to favor my sisters. They were light skinned. So I always felt like I was a little black girl that nobody wanted. But I always felt rejected from them. Like they spent time more with them. They bought them more things. They kind of like took them under their wings. Where for me,
Yeah.
I always felt like, well, nobody want me, right? So how it shows up
Yeah.
is the minute somebody does something I feel rejected, oh, I'm emotional.
Mm.
I'm crying. I'm playing scenarios. I'm blaming myself because, we typically don't blame the other person because we haven't healed from that. So
Yes, I had to
rejection
go through
is the
that
biggest
too.
trigger,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or let's just say there was a perpetrator. Like I tell people, don't force adults on kids. The reason why, because as a child, your grandmother come over. Well, I'm a child. I don't know the difference between your grandmama and my neighbor who smelled like her and looked like her that used to abuse me. I don't want to have nothing to do with her. And even as an adult, you could be. So you ever been somewhere and people are engaged in doing things, and the minute you see somebody's whole mood change, but nobody know what happened, they probably got triggered.
Talk about it all the
So a
time.
lot of
Yep.
times it
Hmm.
shows up through triggering behavior because
Yes.
we haven't addressed it. We haven't healed from it. So when something stirs that up, we get defensive, we get emotional, and then we react and we respond as opposed to owning it, right? And
Hmm.
not projecting it
Yes.
off on other people. Welcome. I call her beautiful. Thanks for joining.
Yes.
So
Thanks for joining.
it
Samaja
really
Product
shows up.
Promotions. Thanks for joining.
Yes, it really shows up. And then that's that everyday life. I'm at work and the lady come in and she's being extra nice, but I'm like, well, what's her problem? She must want something because somebody
Mm.
else was nice to me that really wanted something from me, and it's not her fault. She just being nice because she having a good day. But now I feel like, well, the last person was nice to me because I didn't address it, wanted something from me, and I try to act like it didn't matter. Now I'm gonna take it out on this person because they must want something because they being nice to me.
Hmm.
That's how it
Yeah.
show up in everyday life. Or something that happened, we find ourselves depressed.
Hmm.
We stop
That's.
showing up for ourselves because it's
Hmm.
not addressed, and we can't even get to the root
Yeah.
of it because we didn't even address it, and it's been sitting there waiting for us to. I cycled through an abortion through my book. I tell you exactly what I had to do to get over it because it was driving me crazy. Every time I thought about certain things, every time it came up, I thought I was going to lose it. And I cycled through how I balance, how I managed to come to a place of peace with that abortion. And it started with forgiving myself first,
Mhm.
but I had to cycle through it
Yeah.
because it was driving me crazy. So
I
it
like
shows
that
up every
word
day.
you use, cycle through it. I like that.
Ooh, Allegra,
I like that.
passive, low self-worth, lack of goals. Absolutely. That was good.
Hmm.
That was good.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So actually I'm glad that Allegra said that because that's actually what I was gonna I'm gonna throw out some keywords. I want you to tell me how they show up. So the first one I'm gonna go with is self-sabotage. How does that show up?
One, we stop showing up for ourselves. Two, it's the negative conversations we have with ourselves. We do more negativity up here than anybody could ever do to us. But we project it
Mm.
like it's somebody else. The scenarios we play and the role we play, we create them, but we put them off on other people. We
Hmm.
make it like what they think about us when it's really what we think about ourselves. We even
Hmm.
create what we think people saying about us that ain't even true. You be like, oh, it's like 100 people don't like me. Name two. But we created
The
this
voices,
idea. No, seriously.
the voices.
Putting others before self. Absolutely. That's how it
Hmm.
shows up as well. So that's the first way is we
Yes,
project stuff up on other
yes.
people.
Dan Roten, the entrepreneur. Thanks for joining.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
That was yes. That was a great one. That was a great one. The next one I have is trauma bond. How does trauma bond show up?
Trauma bonds show up when we stay connected to things that we know that's causing us harm, because we identify it and relate to it, so we attach to it. But really, it's more. It's like a poison. It's like taking it and it's slowly doing something to us, but we want to stay attached to it because it's
Yeah.
what's familiar. We
Yeah.
comfortable
Based
with it.
on
Like
those traumas.
we go from one domestic violence relationship to another. Guess what? It's familiar. It's comfortable.
Mm.
So we attach it to it, and we think it's good, and we think that person, because we're bonding with what's familiar, not with the truth of what's really happening to us.
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Greatly. That was a
Welcome,
great
Albert. Welcome, Albert. Thanks for joining.
welcome in. Welcome in, ATM. Welcome in. Okay, the next one I have is imposter syndrome. If you're familiar with the term, how does imposter syndrome show up practically?
Because we're showing up as somebody else and not ourselves. We want to show up as if we are presenting ourselves in a way, but we're really not being true to ourselves. That's how imposter syndrome looks to me. It looks like you keep showing up, but you're really not showing up as yourself. You're showing up as somebody else. Just like for me, I could feel like it was an imposter syndrome to be always happy. And I really was in the moment, but I got all this unaddressed stuff behind me. So I'm really not operating in my authenticity because I'm not a healed version of myself. The healed version of myself comes across different. Like even sometimes, you ever heard somebody talking to you and trying to convince you of something, and you clearly see that that's not what it is, but they're constantly trying to convince you that, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, or this is going on, or this is happening, but you can dissect, no, that's not it. That's some process. You faking it. That's not really what's going on. That's not really how it is. I even realized recently, having a conversation with somebody, like, oh, you thought she was in a good space. No, you're not. This is really affecting you more than you thought it was. You need to deal with that, because people are hearing not what you're saying, they're hearing what's underneath that. You can only fake it till you make it for so long. That's why it ain't good to fake it till you make it. That's not true.
And no, that's a great point, because I think a lot that is also a thing, the imposter doing that. The other side of imposter syndrome, I just want to throw this in there, is and it's something that I know that I dealt with a little bit too. This is the flip side of it.
Okay.
Is you actually having the abilities to do something, but your trauma, the voices, I just call it the voices.
Yeah.
The voices are saying, no, you're not good enough for that. Meanwhile, it's something that you've probably been doing all your life so effortlessly. So that's another aspect of imposter,
It's
like
still
the
not showing
syndrome
up
of
as yourself. You're still not showing up
exactly.
as yourself.
It's really not exactly, because you're telling yourself you're doing it, but you're still your mind is still telling you, that you're a fake, per
Like,
se.
so
That one is a deep
Black
one,
Hair
the
Shop
imposter syndrome.
says, right, we can't truly know what others think unless they say it directly. It's really all in our head. And Allegra said,
A
not
lot of
feeling we're
times.
good enough as we are, which it all ties what we all have said together. It's really going to go back to how we feel about ourselves. How I feel about myself kind of dictates how I come across. The things that I allow myself to be willing to do, because I got to feel like I'm capable. If I don't feel like I'm capable, I'm not going to do them, right? Which, if I don't think I'm capable, I probably don't think I'm good enough. I probably don't think.
The problem with me is when you're actually doing it and you still have the voices. But we're working on it. We're working on the voices.
Yeah. But see, listen, okay, since you brought the voice thing up, listen, because we all have voices. I'm gonna tell you what is working for me. One thing when it comes to voices, what I practiced years ago was I started filling my head with nothing but good stuff. So what happens is, once I start replacing all that negativity and all those negative thoughts and all the negative conversations with good information, good stuff, positive feel good songs, when I think negative,
For sure.
I automatically can turn on something positive because I have put it in me. I've listened to enough stuff, grounded myself into enough stuff, have enough good conversations, enough healing conversations to when, even when the negative thoughts come, I can quickly interact them, or I know what to do to counteract them quicker because I programmed myself to come up out of that space instead of wallowing in that space. So when you want to get that stuff out of here, it's gonna come. We have to go outside. We can't live in our house all day and live. You can watch the news and become depressed. I'm sorry. It's just the reality of it. So knowing that, You got to start filling your head with stuff. You start listening to stuff, reading stuff, and you got to be intentional. If you say, okay, 15 minutes a day, I'm going to listen to this, read this, or whatever that looks like for you. Once you get enough of that down inside you, then it can start coming up quicker, because a lot of us, we haven't even programmed ourselves to put a lot of good stuff in us.
That's a good point. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. To me, like what you just said right now, you know how we hear the term spiritual warfare. Now, mind you, I mean, obviously, my title is a spiritual life coach.
Mm-hmm.
I am aware that there's a physical plane
Mm-hmm.
and a spiritual plane.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But when we hear spiritual warfare, yes, there is spiritual warfare in spiritual planes. I'm not about that life. I don't know nothing about that.
Yeah.
When we hear spiritual warfare, a lot of people always go there first. This real spiritual warfare as us, as normal day-to-day human beings, because we are humans on this earth
Mm-hmm.
right now, it's the stuff here. The
Yeah.
spiritual warfare in the mind. That's the real one. And that's what I'm passionate about. And that's why I do what I do, is to
Yeah.
help people with that. But first, it starts with me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And my voices used to be louder. Before I became a coach, they used to be louder. But because I took this a journey intentionally to say, nah, I need to work on me first. I need to deal with certain things that are coming up for me to address before I become somebody's life coach. And there's no such thing as perfection.
No.
None of us are ever going to be perfect.
Right.
But I can look at myself 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 months ago, you know, and say, wow, this is important. It starts with me. But again, the spiritual warfare is not in those other planes. Most of us don't know anything about that lifestyle. We know about the mental warfare here. So thank you for dropping that gem, because that's the thing. That's the thing right there. These voices. But this is why I created Divine Talks. Because in some settings, when you say the voices, people look at you as weird. The voices, she got voices. You have voices too. You're just not saying it.
No, but
And if
see,
you don't have voices, that's a deeper problem.
because
But
most
I'm
of the
not gonna get into
damage is
that.
here.
Yeah.
Most of it is really between our own, because you take a woman who was in a 15-year relationship, got 3 beautiful kids, and her husband come home and say, I'm leaving you for the secretary. I can't do this anymore. And he got 2 kids with the secretary, and you're just not finding out. And you can wake up and say, oh, this is my new life now. And
Acceptance.
what you say up here is
Let me
going to
drink water to
dictate
that. It's water, y'all. Let me
every
drink to that.
what you say
Acceptance.
up here dictates every move you make after that. Think about it. Whatever she say up here is going to dictate everything that happens after that. How she feel, her thoughts, and all that impacts the behaviors that comes. Chanel, thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple, right? We can't truly know what others think unless they say it directly. It's all in the head. That's what Black Hair Shop said. Allegra G said, not feeling we're good enough as I think she's talking about imposter syndrome. Black Hair Shop says you're doing it on auto without mindfulness and intention. This connection. Allegra says automatic thoughts happening fast and you don't even realize it. I think that's I think they're talking about the voices when we're talking about the voices.
Oh, absolutely. It's still the same thing. It's the same thing. It's absolutely the same thing. And the empowering piece comes from us recognizing, I tell people, when you have conversations with other people, start paying attention to how many times y'all bring somebody else up. People was calling me like, oh my God, Lynn, I hate that you did that. Yeah, because we don't like to talk about ourselves. We don't like to address ourselves. We don't like to deal with ourselves. But we could talk to somebody and bring up somebody else real fast, right?
Yeah.
And when they start doing that, they start seeing themselves different. But it's different when you're talking to people and have friends that y'all talk about growth. You talk about development. You're okay with being transparent, whether you felt like you failed at something, whether something didn't make you feel good. But the safe place comes in. Y'all still talking about yourselves. You're not bringing up, Becky from the shoe store or your coworker and what she did to you last week. The healing comes from, if I call you and be like, hey, how you doing today? And you like, girl, I'm good. And I'm like, well, I ain't gonna lie, I ain't having a good day. I'm gonna heal from that because you are safe enough space for me to be honest and transparent with. That I can say, you know what? that situation just drugged me. Girl, I feel drugged. And then instead of feeling like you should know better, you've been through that already, you should not have let that happen again. No, I can say that floored me. It got me devastated. I wasn't even prepared to address it. But since you asked me, and I can feel safe in this space. Let me tell you how disappointed I am in myself. I thought I overcame that, but I really didn't. You know what that does? Instead of you calling me and you like, girl, what's going on? Nothing. That girl at work gave me attitude for no reason. How we gonna grow from that? But that's what tends to happen. And when you start noticing it, when people do it, it lessens for you, and then you notice what type of conversations you're having with people, to where you can create a transformation. Because I don't want to really be doing that and engaging in that. But if we're not aware that's what we're doing, how do we fix it? Because it's the norm.
Exactly. And that's why I'm passionate about these topics, because again, even trauma, like the first topic, live topic, what is this? Live talk show? Goodness help me. Live topic talk show. Goodness. It was called Childhood Traumas and Its Lingering Effect. And we had a dialogue with my co-host, and just to come to find out that even trauma, the word, a lot of people don't even know that they have trauma. Let's talk about that.
Girl, I can tell you stories. One of my icebreakers is, please share a traumatic experience, how long it happened, how long ago it happened, and I want you to give me one word to describe how it made you feel. And one girl, grown lady, she said, oh, I ain't never experienced no trauma. And I was like, oh, nothing is never, you don't feel like anything traumatic. And she said, no. She said, but I watched my best friend blow his head off, but then she started crying. No, in the moment, she started crying. And in that moment, she realized, and then we engaged after the class was over. And she started pouring into me how that changed her life, how trauma is a threat to one's survival. It changes our trajectory. And she told me all the things she started doing after he did that. But it was in that moment that she realized it. Let's read. Black Hair Shop says, trauma starts in a home, being told that what goes on in a home stays in this home. Absolutely. But see, it also teaches children to be sneaky, to keep secrets. But see, we taught them to keep the secret, because what happens in here stays in here. Do you see how the connection? Yeah.
Yes, we're sweeping it under the rug.
Absolutely. But it's silencing. But it's really silencing children.
So the next keyword I have is lack of boundaries. How does lack of boundaries show up practically?
So listen, I'm finna throw this word out there that we ain't talked about. You're gonna be like, okay. So lack of boundaries plays a huge part in dysregulated behaviors. And dysregulated behaviors associated with trauma is because it's those behaviors that we developed that don't match a lot of the circumstance and the situation. So lack of boundaries from trauma allows, again, you stay in relationships that you don't want to be in. You allow people to do things to you that you don't want them to. You allow people to say things to you that you will accept that you don't want them saying to you. You do things for people that you don't want to, because you don't know how to set the boundary that you don't want to. I'm tired and I'm sleepy. I work 7 days a week, and you call me and ask you to give you a ride, and you think I'm obligated to, but I just work 7 days a week. And it ain't my fault that you waited till the last minute. You got to be to work at 7. I should be able to tell you no. And you understand that, because I work 7 days a week. You just call me sleep. Boundaries saying, look, this is how I want to be treated, but you're not treating me like that, but we're afraid to say that. So we just settle for what we got and we stay in that space. That's what dysregulated behavior is rooted in lack of boundaries.
Yes, that's a really good one. Another word for that is like being the yes man. I think we had a movie called like the Yes Man or something, just yes to everything, or the yes woman,
But
everything.
we have to establish boundaries with our kids, with our parents.
Oh, for sure. With every single human being. Look, with every human being. With the dogs.
But people don't think they're supposed to have them. Like, people don't think
with the animals.
They can set boundaries
can't
with
come on the
your
bed.
husband. Oh, you getting them too.
Yes,
My
no,
kids get them,
let's talk about that.
So,
Let's talk about that. Boundaries in relationships, even though this is not geared about relationships, this is the open talk for anything.
yeah.
But boundaries, a lot of times we struggle with, especially people, I've never been married before, but I'm assuming people who've been married for like 25 years, what does that even look like for boundaries? Something like that. How do we incorporate boundaries in connections, in unions?
Wait, so Black Hair Shop said, how do we gain that trauma? So now, using the word gain trauma, that's a new one on me, and I'm glad you brought this to my attention because I'm gonna learn from
Gain the
this.
trauma.
Yeah,
Okay.
how do we gain that
How
trauma?
does, you know what? Thank you, because that was on my list. Yes. How is it derived? We're not even going in order. We're just flowing. Thank you, Black Hair Shop, Angelina.
So I think that
Yes.
trauma builds because of how we respond to it and how it changes our trajectory. And so a good example would be a child in a complex traumatic experience. So here it is, my father is physical abusing me, but then I can't conceptualize that my father is causing this trauma. So it's complex, right? He's not. So then it must be something I'm doing. So if I grow up feeling like every traumatic experience that has happened to me has been my fault, that's how it becomes. That's how we gain, and we take ownership of something we don't know how, because we can't even accept that it has happened to us. That's why the key thing is, my number one thing that I'm blessed and thank God that I can say this wholeheartedly, that God has given me the gift to be able to process with people. And when you can process from a safe, true space, people think this is hard, complex, organized, documented, strategy to healing, right? But healing starts with you being willing to, whatever's sitting in that stomach that's causing that anxiety, that's creating them negative thoughts and feelings, when you can spit that out. I have seen people whole life change when us having a conversation and they was like,
That's it.
oh my God.
Conversation.
I
That's
had a
it. And that's
girl.
the thing. You're right. People don't realize that.
No, I
Yes.
had
I
someone.
call it vomiting. You have to vomit. You just have to remove. You have to. It's like you eat something bad, or okay, when you drink too much and you have a hangover. Of course, your stomach is gonna be in turmoil. You're not gonna be back to your normal self. You're gonna be feeling nauseous all day. Look, clearly, I've been there, right? You're gonna be feeling nauseous all day till you actually vomit. It has to come out. And it's the same thing with trauma. And the way you vomit through trauma, like Sister Lynn just said, is speaking. That's vomiting. You're bringing it from here all the way through here, and you're throwing it up by speaking, shedding lights on it.
I
So I think
coached someone who was she had the father of her child, but he had another mother of another child, but she was kind of like a dysregulated mother because she was on drugs. So this one took the role of helping with her kids, take care of her kid that she was neglecting, but the father kept drawing back to that. He kept keeping that connection to her, right? The father kept. So then it was driving the one that I was coaching kind of like through some stuff, like, oh my God, like, why do he keep going back to that? But then she's trying to demand her respect, right, in the relationship. And then the girl passed. So me and her was talking about what happened, what was going on. And I said, you're struggling because you're still allowing her to affect you, and you don't understand how, because she did. And she was like, what? The girl is deceased, but she's affecting your behavior because you're not letting things go about her. It's not his fault. It's your fault. He could never even control her in the first place. He can only control himself. So you want to blame everything on her when you're not placing blame on him, but you're not owning how you keep her in your head. She's not putting herself in your head. You keep attaching yourself to her. And when I tell you, within 10 minutes after we processed through it, she was good after that. But she didn't understand how she was keeping her alive in her head. But it was what she was thinking about and all the things she did and why he couldn't just leave her alone. And you're keeping it alive. This is a good example I like to say. We talk about Jesus being alive. He will never not be talked about. He will never die. Think about what I just said. We keep famous people alive. You know why? Because we talk about them 50 years later. We keep them alive. Energy is real. So the
Mm-hmm.
magnitude of having a spiritual practice and believing in God and knowing God is alive is attaching to the part of, if I got 50 million people saying God is good, God is good. If I got 50 million people saying Tupac is alive, everybody gonna start believing he alive. But we keep stuff going and we keep stuff alive.
Yes,
And she kept her
I
alive.
believe that.
And she never was the
Yep.
same after that. And it took all of 10 minutes after it came out for her
That's
to recognize. So my
amazing.
point was saying was that you got to be okay with being honest with yourself. You got to be okay with not living up to the expectation that society has put on you, your parents, your siblings, your relationship. The authenticity comes from me saying, that hurt me. I thought I was going to be cool with that, but I'm bothered by that. Like, I thought I didn't even want to be with that person, but now that I'm not with them, this is driving me crazy. It's power in that. It's less power in me acting like I'm tough and I don't care and they don't matter. Ain't no power in that. So I can never reach a place where when I see them and talk to them, they don't bother me because I'm not being authentic. So guess who you betray when you're not being authentic? You betray yourself. And since the betrayal piece came up, hear me when I say this, you guys. When we talk about betraying ourselves, think about when we compromise in a relationship. People usually think they're compromising. A compromising is willing to say, truthfully, oh, I can be okay with that. I can work with that. A betrayal is you cool and you not. You betraying yourself. And that
Sacrifice.
does more damage.
Self-sacrifice.
It does more damage. It does way more damage as opposed to you just being honest and real and being okay when it don't feel good. Crying when you feel like crying. Release it. You ever seen a person like pour out and then they could just cut it off and you'd be like, oh, they was faking. No, they wasn't. They got it out. They good. They freed themselves. You ever heard a person just talk, and then all of a sudden they don't got nothing else to say? Because they freed
They
themselves.
got it out.
So it's not
there's power
complicated.
in
You got to
talking.
be willing to do the work.
Yes.
You got to be
There's
willing to
so
do the
much
work.
power in it. So much power in it. And I always call it like living rent free. Don't allow things, people, places, things, experiences to continue living rent free in your mind because they're living rent free. They're not even paying rent.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. Welcome, Chaz Davis.
So yes.
Welcome, Chaz Davis.
Welcome, Chad. So before we get into that, we're talking about how we can have boundaries in relationships, in unions.
Well, those
What are some
boundaries.
tips you can
So,
share
so
with
we talked about
how
who
to
we can
keep
have
your
boundaries
boundaries
with,
in relationships?
but we set boundaries by being okay with telling a person what we really need, how we really feel, because you don't stop the person from causing the pain. You delay the pain. An example would be if I'm in a relationship and my partner keep wearing a purple shirt, and this purple shirt make my stomach hurt, and then I'd be like, oh, you wear that purple shirt? Oh, okay. You like that purple shirt? Okay. Then they keep
You like
wearing
that?
it. They keep wearing a purple shirt, but my knots is getting worse. But I'm scared to tell them not to wear that purple shirt because they like that purple shirt. But if I don't tell them to stop wearing that purple shirt, I'm doing internal damage. The boundary is for them and me. The purple shirt is causing me some concern. And me being able to acknowledge is causing me concern instead of ignoring it. You cannot ignore trauma, pain, and unhealed behavior. You can't ignore it. It just resurfaces ways and comes out in different ways. But you can't ignore it. It doesn't go away. It gets worse. So setting boundaries is a part of you healing. You heal setting boundaries because if you don't set the boundaries, you can't heal because guess what? You stay stuck. You stay stuck in that. How you get out of it? You can't. There's some people who know how to live in a space where they know what's not happening to them is not right, but they stay in the space. So then they convinces other people that to do that is okay, when really it's not okay. And them be the people that explode, blow up, or do something drastic out of nowhere because they've lived with almost like blinders. But when you understand when someone's experienced something so traumatic that they mentally messed up, they probably can be okay in that space, but they detached. They're not there. They functioning, but they're not there.
Mm.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone who's out there right now and is in that space, that
Hmm.
transformational space in their life right now, where they're in between? I know that there's some things that I want to achieve, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in career, family, but I still feel this heaviness that I can't really put to play. Like, what would you tell someone who's trying to accomplish all these things? They have a vision of what they can see their life will look like, but they're struggling with getting there.
So
And
they have
in
the vision
relation to
already, or
trauma.
is the vision clear?
Yeah, they know that there's some things they want to do. It could be as easy as, I want to feel better inside. I
Mm-hmm.
want my anxiety levels to go down. It could be whatever vision. It doesn't even have to be material. It could just be a lifestyle. I just know that right now I'm not where I want to be. I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell someone as far as the importance, and we're still on the topic, importance of healing?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who is in that middle ground, why is it important for them to do the work so they can actually get what they want? Why is it
So
important?
it's
Because a lot of
gonna
people are afraid to do the
so
work.
it's going to start with, let's just say I know I'm a person who have a lot of anxiety, but I need to do some work so I can stop having anxiety. When I'm having anxiety, I got to address what is causing it, because our stomach hurt. Oh, I got to go use the bathroom. I need to eat. We're not acknowledging the root of it in the first place. So the first thing you got to do is, when you're having anxiety, don't run from it. Don't go preoccupy your mind. Don't jump on the phone. Don't jump on social media. You have to be willing to sit and say, okay, I'm feeling some type of way. You got to be willing to, when them tears come, let them tears come. You got to be willing to, if you feel like screaming, you got to go somewhere where you can scream, because the release comes from that energy that's sitting there. When you suppress it, it gets work. You have to release it. So what is causing the anxiety? Is it because I just saw something on social media that made me feel uncomfortable? Is it because my mama didn't call me back? Is it because I didn't get a job promotion? So when you can cycle through what's causing it while it's there, it's hard to go back when it's not there. It's just going to come up another way. So then you're going to attach it to something else. You have to be willing to say, okay, I'm feeling this type of way. Why? Where's it come from? And do not create a distraction. You got to sit in it. It may mean
Yes,
crying. It
yes.
may mean screaming. It may mean praying. It may be stomping. It may be throwing a plate. Like we ignore those things like they cliche or movie oriented. Those things are real, and they add real value to the next level of coming out of something or overcoming something. Like, my number one coping skill is crying. And I think that's why I'm saying, when you listen to children being abused or neglected for 20 years at the hands of their caregivers, which means I'm supposed to trust this person. I'm supposed to be able to trust this person, but I can't. And you listen to that, I'm still trustworthy. I still got my sanity. I'm still grateful. It's because I do the work. If I start
Because
feeling
you do the
uncomfortable,
work.
I'm going to cycle through what got me uncomfortable. Oh, we had 5 fatalities this week and they were all under 5. Oh, 5 kids died. How did that impact me? How do you feel about children? Like, you got to cycle through. That's
Mm-hmm.
why when I do the power processing, when I life coach,
Yes,
we get the
yes.
results, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm even if it means I need you to take a journal and maybe you need to put a lock on it, or maybe you need to write somewhere where you can't see, because a lot of times people don't feel safe with themselves to be honest with themselves, or they got this idea that someone's going to see it or someone's going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is, you can't heal in those spaces. You
Mm-hmm.
got to own it. You got to release it. You got to talk about it. You got to cry about it. You got to cuss about it. You know how many conversations I've had with God, like he was sitting right in front of me. When I was done, I was good. But because I was able to say, like, I can't always type nice and good and perfect to God. God want to hear my yuck. God want to hear I'm hurt. God want to hear, God, I can't breathe right now. I need you to give me a lifeline. God needs to hear, that man got me so upset. I want to cut my wrist. God, can you stop me? Because I'm feeling some type of way. That's how real I get. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't play when it comes to, I'm
At all.
hurt. And if this
At
hurt
all.
don't remove itself, I can't jump on my cell phone right now. I can't call my friend and talk about something else right now. I can't play games. I can't
Mm-hmm.
listen to some music. I can't run to a video.
Yeah,
I need to sit. I need to
because
sit in this.
yes,
Rock to
because
it.
if we
Right?
don't, it will come out in ugly
Yes.
ways. That's another thing. That's another one of my motivations and why I have to do the work. I have to sit in the pain. I don't care. I have to lick my wounds, because if I don't, it will come out in nasty ways, and that's detrimental to me. So that's a very great point. Now, uh, just plain devil's advocate here. I'm just following along the thought. So I heard all that. Now, what if I'm still like, okay, well, Miss Lynn, I see this is all the work I have to do, but how do I know I'm still going to feel better after that? How do I know I'm still going to accomplish this desires that I have if I do the work? You know, if someone is struggling with that, what can you say to them?
You're going to be intentional about seeing how you respond and act to stuff. You're going to be intentional about, okay, how was I last time this happened as opposed to it's happening now? Or what are my triggers? Because that's a key piece too, is people being triggered, but don't know what's triggered them or why it's triggered them because they still haven't did the work. Like I can recognize that, oh, I'm upset about this breakup because I haven't addressed my rejection issues. You see how I work? Like once you sit in and accept it, you got to be willing to process through it too. Like you can't ignore stuff. You got to be intentional about, okay, I'm feeling good right now. How do I stay feeling good? So when the next thing happens, you don't ignore it, you don't address it, you continue to sit in it so you can see the growth. Journaling is important because it shows you. If I wrote down today is November 5th, I cried so hard till I started feeling better. I found the way to release myself. And I write down what I did. And then I don't journal. But the next time something happened and I'm feeling that way, I can go back to that and see progress. See, we don't even want to watch ourselves grow. That's why my spiritual foundation has been so good this last year, because I started writing everything down. Like, oh my God, when I thought God talked to me, when I thought I saw a sign. So then everything can come together. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah, that's
this Rye said she can't stay
Michael,
long, wanted to show some
sister.
love.
It's Rye. Hey,
And then
Rye.
Black
Hey, sis.
Hair
Cancel on
Shop
the
has
one
a
that showed some love.
question.
Thank you for joining, sis. All the way from Texas. Thank you for joining, sis.
So Black
Yeah, no,
Hair
that was.
Shop, does a lack of self-value come from trauma? And does that contribute to boundaries? Does a lack of self-value
Yes.
come from trauma? Absolutely comes from trauma, because our lens in the beginning shapes what happens in the end. So it starts with our lens as a child. If I'm in a loving and a good example is this man is very mean on the bus, on an airplane ride. He's mean, he's rude, he's disrespectful. No one want to deal with him. The little girl gets on the plane with her dad and she's happy and feeling good. And the little girl see that he look mean, but she go over there and play with him because her lens don't see what we see. She's free to love, be open with people, and be free. Her dad was right there, so she had to feel safe. But a child whose lens, who's scared, who's introverted, who has a fear of strangers, it looks different from the little girl who, I've been free. My parents have taught me that I can be safe in their environments when they're present. So this man don't scare me because of their lens. So it does come from
Let's talk
trauma.
about that lens. Yep, I use the
And
lens
then
too. Go ahead.
it
Sorry.
does contribute to a lack of boundaries, because if we don't have self-value, we don't even know how to set boundaries in the first place. And a lack of self-value, don't even sometimes see that we need boundaries.
That was greatly put. Yes. And that was a great question, sis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
It's all connected. We have definitely been on here for some time, and this is what happens when you're having a good time.
We've been on there. Yeah, we've been on there for what, an hour and a half?
I'm telling you. I want us to, we'll be closing out soon. So guys, please leave some more questions and comments if you have any. I want us to get into now some tips. I know, look, we've shared all of these things already. I already know, but if we can just talk about what are some healing tips that you can give people who are on the healing journey? Practical healing tips. And I know you've already shared some.
So we're going to say thank you for Monetize with Chrissy for joining us. Thank you so much for coming on here with us.
Yeah.
One of the biggest tips I want to give people, and this is huge, you guys, you got to show yourself some compassion. We do not show ourselves compassion enough. We are hard on ourselves. We beat up on ourselves. We talk negative to ourselves. Like, the biggest tip I can give you is showing yourself some compassion. being nice to yourself,
Great.
loving on yourself. That self-compassion will go a long way, which will ensure you do some self-care. That's a huge tip. People think I got my hair and my nails done as self-care. That's beautifying yourself. And that's a layer to self-care. But self-care is not, I got my hair and my nails done. Because guess what? I know people who get their hair and their nails done and they broken and they mean and they angry because they're not dealing with themselves. I know people who I've did sessions with who had BBLs, but they still can't see from beyond here, even though physically they look physically okay. They're trying to figure out how I did all this to my body and I'm still stressed. I'm still crying. I'm still mad. I still feel ugly because it takes inner work, right? And another one is to educate yourself about the things that's bothering you. Like for me, when I realized, oh, I haven't addressed me
That's a
feeling
good
like
one.
I've been
Education. Yes.
rejected. I need to go find out, first of all, what is rejection? And once I
Yes.
learn what rejection is, I got to search how many times have I felt like I've been rejected and who rejected me, right? That's that work, but that's educating yourself about the things we don't like to go educate our, like trauma. Trauma is trending right now. People ain't educating themselves about trauma. Trauma is just a trendy
So
topic.
it's a fad now. People,
Yes.
it sounds good now.
So
It
I
just
think
sounds good.
that's three key things. That's self-compassion, which leads into self-care. Educate yourself. Really, really, really. And I like to say, I'm going to say it again, engage. Do not isolate yourself. Isolation is the worst place to be when you're not feeling good about yourself. You need to engage. The problem is we're engaging spaces we don't even really feel safe in, or we engaging in spaces that's not teaching us to heal. We talking about stuff that's irrelevant. We laughing about stuff that's not really significant to what's going on to us. I could say right now I could call somebody. I can call somebody like Chrissy and be like, hey, how's it going? Immediately the conversation is going to go into, you've been working on this, you've been doing that, I know you got your hair and your nails done, but did you go to your therapy session this week? Those type of conversations is better than my friends. I hang out with people who don't watch TV. So I never have to worry about what's happening on Love and Hip Hop. I never have to worry about what's happening on Basketball Wives, because guess what? We don't have to talk about them because we don't do it. And it's nothing against people who do. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
Yeah, just where
sometimes
you are.
we don't even realize the circles that we're engaged in is causing us to stay in places that we can't get out of because we need to change our circle.
Yeah.
We need to get away from the people. I had disconnected from somebody who I have a long-standing relationship with, has stopped talking. And within 15 minutes, I noticed 3 things about myself that I can be honest about. One, I'm still not strong enough to talk to her, because immediately I had to ask God to forgive me because I had not been using profanity and talking negative. And immediately within 15 minutes, I had to say, God, forgive me, because I used the F-bomb like 3 times. And another thing, hearing her talk, I was stressed out because I was like, is these the type of conversations we was having? This is why I had to disconnect, because you see it clearly when you separate. You can't see it while you're in it. So engage and don't isolate, but be mindful in who you engaging with. So that's 4 right there.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I'm gonna just put my own a few that I wrote down in my notes, and I'm gonna piggyback off what you just said. The last one, I'm gonna start that as number 1 on my list, was literally cutting the cords of toxicity. Some people, some places, some experiences, parts of your own self got to go.
Yeah. Look, your own self.
That's it.
That's good.
Cutting the cord.
Yes.
Parts of your own self. To me, my own, and like you said earlier, you're not really a cut off person. Like you like love, and you like, I'm the same exact way. Before we do this, how can we, especially if it's possible, but I have learned that the best way I can cut out anything is within. So I'm not looking to we're always pointing fingers. This person did this, that person did this person. I need to start doing this, because there's an old saying, you're pointing fingers, but there's 3 more pointing back at you. So when I started doing this, I started looking at myself, parts of my own aspects of my own personality, behavior, mindset that were connecting to this people, places, things. Those were the things I had to get into. So when I started working and cutting out these parts of my own self is when everything
because
else started
there's a
aligning. And for
natural
the most part,
progress.
that's a tip.
It naturally evolved to something else, though. Once you start doing the inner work, it naturally paves way where you segment
That's
into
it.
something else that needed to change or you needed to hear. Absolutely. Absolutely.
For sure. For sure. The next thing I have was self-love activities. Like you said, self-love. What are some self-love activities? Instead of going to get your nails done, going to get your hair done, which all of those things are amazing, because the saying, you look good on the outside, you feel good on the inside. That's all part of self-care. But like Sister Lynn was saying, that is not the
It's
real
not the
deep
root
work. That
of
is not
it.
the real self-love
So
and
you know
self-care.
what
That's part of it on the external side,
you know something you
you
could
know?
do? This is one thing you could do, and this is real, you guys. You take a book, not a drama-filled book. You take a book that is designed to teach you and show you something. That is self-love, because that means you're willing to
Oh,
take out time for
yes.
yourself, to feed into yourself, to feed into your
To feed your
soul,
soul.
to tap
That is
into
food.
places that listening
Soul
to
food.
drama, talking
Yes.
about drama can't get to the root of what's going on with you. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So reading a good
Distractions.
book,
Yep.
watching, I got movies that's like, anybody heard of PureFlix? PureFlix is a channel that nothing on Pure, all of it is about spiritual growth. Now people go through stuff, but it shows you what's on the other side of it every time. So I watch
Mm.
PureFlix because the movies is motivational, inspirational. It teaches you, if you hang in there and you don't give up, the result, which is facts.
What
So
is it? Pureflix? What is it?
it's called Pure, PURE, PureFlix, just like Netflix.
Like Netflix? Pureflix?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The
Okay. All
show
right.
about God is dead, but it's really God is not dead. Those shows are on there because it teaches you, for Christians, when you question. Most of the shows is about non-believers and how they go try to prove that God is not real to find evidence that he is. It's those type of shows,
Mm.
and it's from a real
Interesting.
place.
Yeah, I like stuff
Oh,
like
you
I'm into
see
stuff like that.
pastors go through stuff. You see pastors have real human responses to stuff. Oh, but again, this is how God works. I literally would get in my car and want to play, hip hop secular music because it got bouncing rhythm. So one day I was headed somewhere and I was like, do I listen to that or do I listen to my spiritual music? So I played that music. Change comes from when you can feel the conviction of something. Because I'm progressing in my spiritual walk, I cannot do the same things, listen to the same things. You guys, I went in my phone and deleted everything that was not spiritual music. But guess what I found? I stay spiritually collected longer because that's the space I want to be in. So to be in that space, I got to do the things to keep me in that
Mm-hmm.
space. And that's the things
Mm-hmm.
that naturally happen. So now all I do, and I found that I can bump the same music. It's just the music that I prefer to feed my soul with. Because what happened is I kept playing the secular music in times I didn't want to. I'm on my way to go do my meditation, but I'm playing that song I was bumping in the car. This don't go together. That's what it looks like.
Playing Future.
Girl.
No, but I love the balance. I love that you said that because
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about balance. I really and the balance there is, like you said, knowing when to play it. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I need Future, like I need Young Jeezy, So it's really just knowing. And what I've also learned, like before I got certified as a life coach, I had to do that thing. Feed myself. I will constantly be working and make sure that I had something playing in the background that
Mm-hmm.
was food to my
Yeah.
soul. And you mentioned this earlier, as far as in the battlefield, which I mean like the mental warfare, you're gonna need those things that you've deposited into yourself.
Yes.
That's the thing that's gonna come
Mm-hmm.
and that's your battle tools. That's what I call
Yeah.
it, the battle tools.
Mm-hmm.
This is the mental war. So where are you getting the tenacity, the tools to
Mm-hmm.
fight? You have to get them from somewhere. So is these things, the music, listening to Future. Sometimes I can't listen to Future because I know that I need to be in this. I'm going through a lot right now, and Future might be saying something that perpetrates what I'm going through. It might
Or
be adding
trigger.
more fuel to that thing. So
Trigger.
no, or trigger, exactly. So let me go listen to something that's more positive, more
Yeah.
feeling, that's gonna get me out of this feeling, that this unpleasant emotion I'm
Yeah.
having. So those things are important. It's
Mm-hmm.
really important. Even who are you following on Facebook? Who are you following on
Yeah.
Instagram? The people that you're feeding yourself on your streaming, that is going into your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious. It's adding to your
You know, and
traumas. You know,
I
it's
love,
preventing you from.
I'm sorry if I cut you off. I love when I can
Go ahead.
really genuinely have a conversation with somebody and the things that they talk about is in the space that they're in, from a true space. But most of the people I talk about is talking about healing, talking about becoming better, talking about the things that they're working on, that they're doing, and it's still involving helping other people too. So again, you got to be mindful. You can't hang out with a person who all they ever say is, "I'm going to do this. I'm getting ready to do this. I'm fenced to do this. you know, I'm a." People who stuck in that state of mind, it's not a good place to be, and it can't help you grow up out of that with them. You
Mm.
gotta be constantly engaging with people who feeding what's going on with you, who's feeding what
Mm-hmm.
your goals is, who's
Social
feeding,
media is a
but
big
that
one
will
because people
help
don't realize
with
the
how you
impact it
feel.
has.
Well, see,
Mm-hmm.
it
Like
impacts how
Keshav
you
says, the
feel.
circle we keep are a reflection of who we are. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a reflection of how we feel and what's going on with us. If I'm a person who I don't watch TV shows, it's gonna be hard to be talking to somebody who's talking about TV shows because I can't relate, I can't identify, and I'm not in that space. So, but
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
think about it like that until something
Yeah.
happens. So instead of waiting for something to happen, you got to be intentional about, because the conversations is feeding your brain too. What you watch on
Mm.
TV is, I know women who made a life decision off watching a TV show. And then by the
Oh
time
my
they got to
goodness.
me,
Or
they
the
crying.
memes. What about a meme on social media? What
But
about
that's
a
real,
meme?
but it's real life. And one thing we forget is social media is just it's just that moment. It's a glimpse
Yeah.
of that
Mm,
moment.
mm,
That's what social media is. And for
mm.
people who is truthful on social media, who operate from a real space, they can't disconnect from what's not real because they think everybody doing what's real because they doing what's real. They think, well, everything I do is truth and it's really what's
Yeah.
going on. You can't separate that. 95% of the people on there, that ain't what's happening. That is not what's happening in
Oh
their life. Or
goodness.
you got that glimpse of that
Yeah.
moment in time, but you
Yeah.
forget that it's
Yeah.
just a
And you
glimpse of moment in time.
and you know what? I actually fall into the group of people in the past that didn't know because I'm authentic. I'm like, oh, everybody's just I fell into the groups and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh wow, so wow, interesting. I know you in real life.
Well,
And
I
no,
like that.
that's not it. That's
She
not it.
said, she said we have to have self-awareness. It's like the gems we gain through every situation we overcome. Self-awareness is one of the tips. I just was trying to, I didn't cycle through
Yeah.
all of them, but definitely
And
that self-awareness will keep you, ooh,
yes. Yes.
mm,
And that's
that's
actually, I'm
good.
glad you brought that up, like
Yes.
Kershaw. That is the steps of I shared a workshop on and my next thing on the list was going to be shadow work because I break down the whole steps on healing. Is first is really that acceptance, like you said, Sister Lynn.
Yeah.
Acceptance is for me the first step. Then the self-awareness, the acceptance and self-awareness, they might be in the same category, but the
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't really, I think we got to accept before we can even get to self-awareness, because I think that the self-awareness sometimes can come on the journey of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the acceptance is number one. And then I always share with my audience, the next thing is, after I've accepted what has happened, what do I want to do about this? Because I can be aware that something affects me. I don't have to necessarily do the work. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people know a lot. I mean, we're in
Mm-hmm.
the age of information. It's the Aquarius age. This information is a plethora. It's everywhere. Information is everywhere. But we're not implementing those things practically,
But see,
you
what
know? So,
happens in self-awareness, not to cut you off, you got to be mindful,
mhm,
because what happens when people are self-aware and can't work through it? Because again, they're still engaged in people that minimize it, discredits it, don't make them see the true value in what they're aware of, or they make
mhm,
it okay. It's people that will
mhm.
make you think
That's why
something
I'm saying you
okay
have to make a decision
because
after that. It's,
they're waiting for your demise. So I'm gonna
mm.
make something that I know is not good for you okay to keep you in that space because it's gonna be to your demise.
Good.
But
You're
I'm your
gonna have us
friend
being
though.
here longer with that
So let's
conversation.
welcome. Let's
You're
welcome
gonna have us being
Valencia.
here
Wilson
longer.
joined. Rain joined. Malik making meals joined. Thank you guys for joining this live.
Rain
But
Ayo. Okay, Allegra.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you guys for joining. So
That's good.
They don't have the boundaries with it. Black Hair Shop said, Allegra says, live congruently with your beliefs and values. Yes,
Mhm.
for
But
sure. For
again,
sure. So,
that circle group, I'm telling you, we minimize our groups. We minimize the people. Like I used to didn't understand when people say I compartmentalize my friends. I have a friend who do this. I have a friend who do this. I got,
I like that.
but guess what? So I got my friends that I can get down with spiritually. Like we can have a full-fledged spiritual conversation, connect, relate. That I know if I call this other person, they'll be like, huh? Well, why are you talking about that? Girl, your spiritual journey ain't that
Yep.
serious. But I also got
Yep.
somebody else who I could call and we can get down about men and have a mutual
Hmm.
understanding about what we talking about when it come to men without
Yeah.
man bashing. We own our part in what we did and role we played if that
Hmm.
relationship didn't work. That's
Hmm.
real friendship than me calling you
Yeah.
we male bashing and we hate
Yeah.
men and we ain't never screw, that's different
Hmm.
than having that social class of people who can really
Yeah.
add balance
For
to the things that's happening
sure.
with that
For sure.
self-awareness.
And that ties back to one, cutting cords if they don't serve you, or a way of it, instead of cutting, maybe I like the compartmentalizing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna steal that phrase, because I think that's what's happening in my life. Not all my friends relate to everything, and
Okay.
that's okay. At first I
Mm-hmm.
did, and full transparency, I struggled with that for a minute. So like I had to come to the place of, no, they don't have to. I
Okay.
can, as long as it's still mutual love and respect, that has
Mm-hmm.
to be number one. Respect and
Mm-hmm.
love. As long as that's there, I can relate to you, because we're not just one. We have so many different aspects to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So and I have a
Mm-hmm.
friend that likes to garden, and the other one might like to twerk to trap music. We're
Yeah.
gonna do both,
Yeah.
because all of this energies reside inside of me. So you have to know which, and I love that, because I struggled with that for a while. So I do love that, knowing where to put each friend or each group of friends.
Do you know how hard it
Another thing.
was? Wait, you know how hard it was for me to say to myself, I have not been talking to this person. I've been talking to this person for 15 minutes and I'm not strong enough yet to be around this person. That wasn't easy for me to say to myself because that person is very close to me. But because I can
Oh,
acknowledge that, I probably should still keep this disconnect going for a while until I get myself, because I didn't blame it on them. I took ownership that you just not ready. Like you fell right back into that mode too quick. Like you're not ready for that. I owned it. And that's what we
yeah.
have to do too. We got to
And
stop
that's where the
placing
power is, when
blame.
you own it.
Stop, and that was another one of my things, is stop placing blame on other people. You have to
Mm-hmm.
really like
Own it.
every relationship I look at from a totally different perspective, as opposed to when I was in it, and the blame and me not realizing my role in it. You know what I'm saying? Can we decide
Mm-hmm.
and like wrap this up in like 15 minutes so we can kind
Mm-hmm.
of
For
yeah,
sure, for
okay,
sure. Yeah,
okay.
and that's really, we've shared a lot of tips. Definitely, you guys have been amazing. Somebody else, the people are joining.
Yes.
Umushad, yeah, somebody else just joined. Thank you for joining. We have definitely shared a lot. We've shared some healing tips,
Yeah.
and now I would like us to close with the actual topic of the live, was trauma and the importance of healing.
Mm-hmm.
In your words, give us some tips. Why are we even here? Why are we even here on our busy days? We all have stuff going on, but we're here talking about the importance of healing. Why is it important?
Because with whatever is going on, and first everyone who joined the live, me, you, whatever's going on in our life, and I don't care how good it look or how good it feel, whatever's going on in our life, we're in a space where we want to grow, we want to heal, because
Mm,
our lives impact the people that's in our lives as well. So we have decided that I want to heal so I can become better, for not only for myself but the people I love, and also the people that God is going to place on my journey. And as a healed
mhm.
person, we are better when we are more healed so we can help somebody else heal.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here. We're here because we know that our life is purposed, right? To help other people. And it's better to help people as a healed person than as a Now, we're not saying being perfect. We're not saying you're going to have it all together. We're saying that
Mhm.
when I do this, I'm talking to myself. I'm teaching myself.
Mhm.
I'm strengthening my tools every time I'm willing to
Yeah.
do this
Yeah.
to help somebody else.
This.
When you ask a question, you're helping me because you're asking me a question. Like it's mutual. This is a checks and balance. a balance between me and you, between Allegra, between Black Hair Shop, between everybody on this live, the connection and the energy that we're developing between the two, it's going to change our trajectory, period.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing I want people, if I wanted to leave on a note of, there is power. Hear me when I say this, in being willing to process. You don't have to hold that stuff. You don't have to ignore it. You don't got to fake it till you make it. You don't got to act like you okay when you not. The reason why I didn't use the word shadow work, because when these like you use some terminology that when we said the same thing, the reason why I shy away from that is because then people only hear what they've been hearing instead of hearing what we're talking about. So shadow work is all over TikTok. I refuse to say that word. I'm going to talk about it, doing the work, but I'm not going to say that. Only because I don't want people to
People have their idea what it is.
Oh, this is another this another trendy topic. You know,
yeah.
This is
No, I know what you mean.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so be willing to process, you guys. Be willing to walk it out, talk it out. I used to struggle with God don't get it. God don't talk back to me, and God don't hear me like if I was talking to my friend, until I really start being from an authentic place and really talking to whether it's him, myself, and I'm mindful of who I talk to when I'm saying certain things. It has really helped me to really process from a real space and not trying to fake it till I make it, or not being engaged with people that I have to say what I think they want to hear as opposed to what I really need to say. There's real power in process. And one other thing is watch yourself talk. Start paying attention to what you're saying to yourself. It's going to make a huge difference, you guys. But even if you find that 95% of the day you said something negative, you can learn to make it, to reduce it to 90, reduce it to 85, reduce it to 80. But you got to start somewhere, and it starts with you paying attention and acknowledging it. Go ahead.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for that. We're getting ready to close out shortly. I'll let you share all your information. I just want to leave with one last word on the same subject, the importance. And thank you so much, Ms. Lynn, for your time today. To me, the most important reason and the most basic on the why we should heal trauma. You know, we live in a world where we're trying to acquire so many different things. Most of us want material things. Of course, we know that we need material things to function in this society, in this economy. That's just practical common sense. We know that. We have people who are millionaires, billionaires, have own islands. I mean, own the sky. I don't know. It gets deep. But the most basic thing that even all of these people are searching for is the P word, peace. Peace of mind. So when we say, why is it so important to heal trauma? Ultimate internal peace of mind. Internal, not what it looks like on the outside, not the billion-dollar mansions, not having all the men and the women you want in your life.
Those are just the Band-Aids.
So that's the importance of healing. If you are in your life right now and you're wondering, why is my nervous system always acting up? Why is it always controlling me when I don't even tell it to why is it moving when I tell it not to move? Why am I just always having anxiety? Why exactly? Why am I just always constantly in a state of depression when the weather changes? All of these other different things is, if you're in that space, this is why it's important to heal. Because once you do, all of those things start changing and you start feeling lighter. Like Miss Lynn said, there's no such thing as perfection. When you're perfect, you won't be here anymore, right? You won't be here anymore if you're perfect, right? So till we leave this dimension, there's no perfection. But what the prize is that you're not going to feel the way you used to feel 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago, if you heal. It doesn't mean that the voices stop. It doesn't mean that the trauma doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be triggered when somebody farts the wrong way. They're still going to be there. But the healing works allows you to be able, not control what's happening to you, because that's out of our league, right? But to deal with it.
Absolutely.
To mentally and emotionally process and deal with it once these things present themselves. And if that's all that brings to me, I'm good with that. So that's how I want to close out this.
Oh, yeah,
It's just Simple
But we all
peace.
seeking, and
Peace.
we are all seeking peace. Absolutely.
For sure.
Peace and
For sure.
understanding, though. Because when you
For
seek peace, it
sure.
brings an understanding to what's
That's
happening and why it
it.
happened to you. Absolutely. Can we see if
Exactly.
someone
It's
want to ask a
incorporated.
question, and then we'll give our
Yes.
final information, see if someone have a
Yes,
question?
for sure.
They can
Please, you
put.
guys, anybody have any questions? We definitely appreciate you all for joining. Thank you for rocking with us. I know people were in and out. I will post this live video on my page, so it will be, you will have access to this. You can follow on Divine Talks to watch the live video, or on my page. I'm not sure if Ms. Lynn is going to have it on hers, but you can definitely watch the video if you didn't get a chance to watch the full thing, or some people that wanted to be here and couldn't make it at the time. This will also be on the page for sure. Yeah, any more questions, guys? Any comments? Leave your 2 cents. What are some healing tips? Do you guys have
Right.
any
Let's
tips that you want to
share.
share with all of us on how to get through trauma, or how to heal trauma, or your importance? Why is it important for us to heal? You know, we want to hear you as well.
Yeah, I want to encourage people to take the time to be clear for yourself. Find your clarity. Be clear. So when you're navigating, trying to get answers, trying to find peace, you got to be clear on that, though, because you can't expect someone to help you figure something out when you don't even know what you need to figure out. And one thing I learned as being a life coach, coaching people who is clear is really different than trying to pull stuff out of people who's not clear, because then they have an expectation on you and may feel disappointed when they feel like you can't meet it, but you want me to meet you at a space that you can't even meet yourself in.
You preaching.
And it's not that
you
we
know,
might have yield results. It was that it was a little different, and it's more of a tug and a more of, did you do A, B, C, D? And they like, no.
I know what you mean.
Because they wasn't clear.
I know what you mean.
When you, if I could say to myself, I'm still triggered by rejection, I need to work on that. So then if I go see somebody and want to talk and process, I'm processing from a place of, how do I overcome this rejection piece? What started my rejection? That's different than, I need to talk to somebody because something happened and I'm feeling sad and I need to stop feeling this way.
I just want to vent. It's really venting. You know, and part of the process is part of the process is you have to start off with the consultation strategy call. So for me, that eliminates a lot of this, because I need to know what your goal of us working together before you even come see me. You know?
Consultation calls
exactly.
reveals a lot.
Right. And even what you're saying, even after that, there can still be times where you're getting pulled in different directions, because it's, you kind of have to bring it back to the goal, because people will go into different places, because that's just how it is. The venting is so many things. They're confused. It's issues that happen in the middle of that. It's a lot.
Venting helps though. When you're willing to get that stuff out, you can't even negate the power of a venting session, because they're still processing. You just have to make
it's definitely good.
When you're doing
it's just knowing how to direct it. That's it. You have to bring it back to the goal, because it's easy to get lost, is what I'm saying.
That's good. That's true. That's so true.
Yes, ma'am.
This has been a pleasure. Oh my God, I appreciate this opportunity.
I still can't see you, but I see you in spirit.
Well, you've been. I feel like you can see me. I feel like you can.
Maybe I can. Maybe I just don't know that I can.
Yeah, I feel like you could actually.
That's a blessing. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. I thank you for your time, for your expertise, for what you're doing out here in the world. And also, I do want you to share with what you're doing at the Clark County Services. Please let us know about that, so in case people need the services.
I've been with the Department of Family Services on the Child Abuse, Neglect, Family Services side for since 1996. So I've dealt with a lot of abuse and neglect. Right now, I am a foster parent recruiter. I actually go out and recruit for foster parents for our foster care system, because in Clark County, the need is great. So we need foster parents right now. So that's what I do for Clark County. For my individual work, I train. I've trained for the government, corporations on trauma and leadership at that level. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yes, I'm going to say. So Allegra says much love. Like Hair Shop, are you from here? Thank you. Much love, Allegra. Yes, thank you.
I do a lot of coaching people who's just really trying to, most people come to me because they like, how you seem so okay. And I don't try to present myself like I'm always okay, because then by the time we talk, I talk from a real space. So I'm really not about trying to make you think I got it all together. The consultation may I'm very transparent, but
You
I know
are.
when to be
Even in our
because
conversation before
you,
this, you were very
yeah.
open with me. So
But I
yes, you
stay
are.
focused on my client, but the transparency do come out when I feel the need to help you understand that I understand it. I usually just bring it back around. So that's really what I do. I'm an
Mm,
author. I'm getting ready to write another book. My spiritual life
yes.
has really grown to a place where more of my stuff will have a more of a solid, more rooted in my spirituality too. I want people to
Mm,
be aware of that. God is
yes.
really good to me, and
Mm,
the more I build a relationship to him, all the things that I thought was external from me spiritually, now they're right here. They're like, oh my God, that is true. That is real. Like, oh, that really do work, because you hear stuff for so long, but you don't practice it. You don't know
mhm.
it could happen for you. So just practicing the things though, too, you guys. Practice, practice,
Yeah.
practice, practice being positive, practice engaging with positive people, being aware of what your conversations are like and what you're talking are like and what you're talking about, who you're talking about it with. All that stuff's matter to you, healing and growing and even becoming a better person. Because the minute people realize, I never knew I talked about people that much, it initially made them feel some type of way. But through the coaching, it's like, you are aware now. And and I asked them, how much are you doing it? The minute they realized they changed it, that was the goal. And it was accomplished.
Mhm.
So doing
Yes.
the work.
Yes.
And I want to say
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Yes. Go ahead. Were you
Yeah.
saying something?
No, I want to tell you thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Thank you. The feeling is mutual. I appreciate your time. And please, guys, you can follow her page.
Thank you.
What is the handle? What is your
So,
Facebook and your Instagram handle?
I am Lynn James. Maybe I should. Can you type it in the comments? Oh, let me see.
Yes. Okay.
I
All right, you
am
typing it? Okay. Yeah.
I
Okay.
am
And the
Lynn.
Black Hair Shop says, "I love your hair, goddess, Sister Locks." I love that. And also, Black Hair Shop is a hair salon that is specializing in natural hairstyles and lock
Oh wow.
extensions. So
Okay.
that's if you would like to follow her as well. She doesn't
Oh,
know. She does
absolutely.
my hair actually. She's the one that did my hair. She does
Okay.
amazing work, and she specializes in locks. And she actually has locks herself. Okay, she just followed
Okay.
you. Okay, awesome,
So yeah.
awesome.
So it's
Okay,
really
so
in my
again, this is.
name. If you Google my name, listen, y'all, you gonna find me. But if you find two of me, I need to know immediately because then I'm gonna be on a whole nother level.
Is someone trying to copy?
Not that I know of. No, it's just that you know how famous people get people named after them. So my attitude is once I get to that
Oh,
point,
I
it's over.
see.
I'm like
Okay.
toot my own horn. I get you. You get two of me.
There we
I'm
go.
good.
Your name is special because I did ask about your last name. I'm like, just Summit. I didn't know how to say it at first, and you told me it was French. I thought that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this has been a
All right,
pleasure, you
guys.
guys.
It has been a pleasure. I thank you guys for joining episode 8 again of Divine Talks Conversations with the Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And please follow the page Divine Talks 53 on Instagram, also on YouTube, Divination, Spiritual and Life Coaching. All the videos will be posted on YouTube as well. So if you are interested in following the journey, this is a very new initiative, only episode 8 so far, but we're still growing and we're having genuine conversations. Just it doesn't have to look a certain kind of way. It's just two people on the same like-minded individuals coming together and just having a conversation about real life.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you guys. You guys have been a pleasure, and hopefully you can join us for episode 9.
All
Peace
right.
and love.
Good night.
All right, peace, sis. All right, take it easy. Thank you,
Uh-huh.
and we will be connecting. I know we will. Can't see you, but we will be connecting soon. Thank
Absolutely.
you for your time.
All
I
right.
have your number in my phone, so we're good now.
Absolutely.
All right.
Bye
Yes,
bye.
ma'am. Peace.